Welcome to Karen Delahunty's Sewing and Knitting Centre, and today I'd like to just show you how the free motion foot works on the Bernette B35 sewing machine. So before we actually get started on the sewing, what we've got to do is prepare our fabric. Now I'm going to do it today by putting the fabric in a hoop. So I've got a hoop here, you can get them in different sizes, but I've got a wooden hoop. It's got an inner and an outer circle. Okay, one goes inside the other, and it's got a little screw here for tightening. And I'm going to put my fabric in here between these two rings so that we've got some tension on the fabric, because I find it's easier when you're doing free motion to keep the fabric taut within these two rings. Right, so I've got some fabric here, just ordinary calico, and under here I've also got a stabiliser which will support this fabric while it's being sewn. It's stitch and tear, and it tears away, so you just grab it and it tears away from you, so you can take it out of the hoop afterwards and tear it away if you wanted to. So here's the fabric ready. We've got the calico and the stitch and tear together. That's the backing underneath to support the fabric stitches on the fabric, and the hoop. Now if we take the centre ring out of the hoop and place that one on the top, the one with the screw part of it, the bigger one, just undo it a little bit, we're going to place that underneath on the table. Put your fabric over the top, put the middle one into the circle like that. Okay, and you push it down quite tightly. Don't worry if it's, because what will happen sometimes is that it might leave a bit of a mark because you pushed it in quite hard on cotton fabrics, but you can iron it out. But this is only a practice. There are other ways of stabilising your fabric, but I find for when you're doing learning free motion, the best thing to do is put it into a hoop like this, because then you could hold the hoop when you're going to start doing the actual free motion sewing, and it helps you to guide your stitching around. Now just to make sure that's stayed in correctly and tightly, I'm going to just flip this over underneath here and just do a little screw tight there just to tighten that up. Okay, it needs to feel a little bit like a drum, but not too tight here. To make sure your fabric is set in correctly into the hoop, the best thing to do is when you want to pull it a little bit tighter, if you need to, because it can be a bit slack in here sometimes if you haven't got it in correctly, is to pull the fabric towards the middle and pull it this way against each other and turn it around and do the same again. If you pull it outwards like this and just literally come out, this can come up. The inner ring can come up and spring out, and then you've got to start all over again. So if you go inwards, then that prevents that from happening. Okay, so now we've got our fabric and hoop ready to do our free motion sewing. So the free motion foot is attached to the Bernette B35 sewing machine already. And I think we've dropped the feeds dogs down, but I'll just double check that as well. You'll find on a previous video that we've done that we've actually showed you how to attach this free motion foot and how to drop the feed dogs and all of that. So do take a look over on that video and have a look at that one as well. Okay, so now we've got the hoop ready, and we've got to put it underneath the free motion foot. So with your lever that's just at the side here, you press the foot lever, it lifts up a little bit as well to allow you to get this underneath. And there's also a spring on this that will allow you some extra room to get it underneath. Okay, so to pop your hoop underneath, you've got to be able to raise this lever up a little bit, this little foot up a bit. So you can do it by using this spring or by using the press a foot lifter, which raises it up too. So I'm just going to lift this up and pop it underneath like that so it's in the circle. Okay, and your thread is underneath here, ready to go, so it doesn't wrap around as it sews around here, so it's not going to get tangled up. Then up here we're going to start with straight stitch, which is A, and you can see there it's A, that's your little A straight stitch. Okay, it doesn't really matter about altering your length or your width of your length or your width of your stitch, because when you do free motion you literally are sewing with freely basically, so you haven't got the parameters of the machine telling you what stitch lengths and things you need to do it for. So now we're ready to start our free motion sewing. So when you put the foot on the pedal, you need to get an even speed on the foot and move this fabric. If you leave the fabric where it is, it'll stitch on the spot and it'll knot up and you'll end up with a jam. You do have to actually move it. The feed dogs are not going to feed the fabric through anymore because we've dropped them down. You have to feed it and draw yourself with the needle. So it's almost like drawing with thread rather than drawing with a pencil. Okay, so we're going to still put the foot lever down because you still need to have a little bit of tension on it to start with. Otherwise you will get lots of knots. So we'll do our even speed and we'll start sewing. And you can sew in any direction, 360 degrees, any way you like. So from a centre point you can go backwards, you can go horizontally to the right, horizontally to the left, forwards, you can go in between those points there if you want to make it look like a little star. Okay, and when you think you've finished that, I mean you can keep going, you can and bring that stitching out a bit more if you want to, like that, and keep going round. And you can do little curves with it, or you can do circles. You can do little zigzags if you just push it just gently backwards and forwards, or you can do it backwards and forwards a little bit like this and bring it forwards across. So you can go left to right, but also bring it forward. You can also choose to do zigzag. So so far we've just done it with our straight stitch. You can do free motion with zigzag, and this is how you do that. You go up to your dials here and you pick B for zigzag. When it's on number 5 here, this is your width control to make the zigzag left to right, but that little dot denotes that it's in the center position for the needle, but it is on number 5, which means it's going to do a zigzag of 5 millimeters wide. Okay, so we're going to do that, but doing it with free motion. So the needle will go from left to right, but you still got to move your hoop around. And we'll put the foot lever down, which we've done. And even though that foot lever is down, it doesn't look like it is because you've still got some room. You are supposed to have that room so that it allows you to move the fabric. It's not like when you do a normal sewing and this foot is actually pressed right onto the fabric to grip it to make it go through. We're not doing that. We're making our own designs by drawing what you like as you're going to move this around, by doing either straight stitch or zigzag, which we're going to do now. So we've set this on to letter B and we've set it on to number 5 width of stitch. So stitching with an even speed, where you can see how it's now going to do a zigzag from left to right. Now if you go up to the right hand side horizontally, it's still doing zigzag, but it'll give you a different type of look of stitch. if you go backwards, it'll do what looks like a normal zigzag, but going backwards. And if we go left, right, if we go over to the left, you'll get a different stitch again. Now, so as you can see on here, we've just played about doing a few stitches here just to show you some of the principles of free motion sewing. But basically, when you use your straight stitch, you start in any direction, but this is quite a typical idea of explaining how it works, because if you start from the center, you can go backwards, forwards, to the left, to the right, anywhere in between, all round a 360 degree, but you don't have to actually turn your fabric around. You can just go forwards, backwards, how you want to do. And similarly, when we've done here, we've just gone round the whole thing, following just a bit of an S shape, really, gone round in circles. Okay, where we've done zigzag here, we've kept an even speed but moved slowly forwards so that we've got a nice tight satin stitch. Slowly to the right and you get a different type of stitch, as you can see here. And this goes backwards. We did backwards one and then we went over to the left. This bit of stitching here that we've done here, as you can see, there's two colours. This is zigzag trying to go, and we've done it on as if we're going on a curve, but I've made the tension a little bit higher on my thread, on the top thread, to purposely pull up the bottom thread, and it's orange, so to make it look like that, because then that gives you another decorative dimension if you wanted to do that. And by tightening your tension, your bottom thread comes up and produces the colours, and it looks really good on zigzag. It's okay on straight stitch too, but it looks a lot better on zigzag. If you didn't want that to happen, then you'd reduce the tension a little bit, but not too far so you don't end up with a lot of bird's nest and a clogging underneath. But you'd reduce the tension a little bit, and then you just get the purple on the top. And when I'm talking about tensions, I mean up here. So up onto the top of your machine here, look, on the top thread, and this is your tension here, this one. So it's normally set on a 4, and it's the amount of squash that goes onto the thread. There's 2 discs in there, and it's the amount of squash that's thread on the thread, and when it's pulled tighter it brings the bottom thread up. So when you pull it tighter, you would take this up to 5 or 6. If you go too tight, it's going to snap the thread, so you do have to watch that. And also, if you go down a bit, so below the 4, because the 4 is the normal one for normal fabric, normal thread, and it's always thread related, so it's always, number 4 is for normal thread. 3 would probably be to reduce it a little bit so that you didn't end up with the orange coming up on there. You'd have it all purpley instead. Sometimes you have to go a bit lower. So hopefully that's just give you a brief introduction to free motion sewing and using the straight stitch and the zigzag stitch. Obviously there's a lot more to free motion than just this little bit, but it was just to show you how the free motion foot worked on the Bernette B35 sewing machine. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe.